All right, hello everyone. Today we're going to be covering the Linux shell, or more specifically the Unix shell, since this subset of program exists both on Unix-like operating systems like Linux and more traditionally aligned Unix systems like all of the BSD flavors out there. Anyway, today I'm going to teach you the basics on how to use the command line, specifically on a Unix or Unix-like system, where to find help, and just the overall basics, the bare minimum of what you need to do. Because a lot of videos out there are hours long and just ramble on or go into very specific detail about things you don't need to necessarily know to use the command line. So today I'm going to show you how to use the command line, the basics, and only what you need. So before I jump right in, what are some of the benefits, or more accurately, why the shell? Why would you want to use this tool? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but there are really three major reasons. The first one is the most obvious, in that the shell is very well integrated into the system, whereas something on like Windows, where it's not, it's there and it can interact with the system, but it's often a lot harder or less integrated into the system. The terminal, the shell, pretty much is always a viable option on a Linux or Unix system. It's just so well integrated into the system that you can pretty much expect almost anything can be done on this. The second is it allows a lot of complicated functionality within a very simple environment. Being that the terminal is only text, there isn't much confusion on what you're actually doing. And for more or less, all shell programs keep a very similar syntax to how you do things. So you can do a lot of complicated stuff in a very simple and very readable environment. Not necessarily easy, but readable. And the third, and kind of a more subjective point, but I think it has validity here, is that the shell requires a lot less overhead than a lot of other GUI tools like a file manager, a full-on blown text editor like Visual Studio or something like that. Because it's just text on a screen, there's a lot less CPU cycles or even sending stuff to the GPU that is required on the command line. Most base or minimal systems often don't even install any of these GUI frameworks and leave you to work with just the shell. So the shell pretty much is a small but powerful tool that can pretty much do anything. And because I'm only going over the basics, I won't really touch into some of the more advanced topics or the realm of shell scripting, just because they are their own big topics on themselves to tackle, but do expect some videos on those topics. Anyway, let's jump right in. So as you see here, I'm on my terminal. I have it zoomed in a bit for you all so that you can see it better. On most terminals, you can do Control plus minus to zoom the terminal in or out. So anyway, our first command. Now, because the shell is integrated with the system, we're often browsing directories on our system that have files or other directories. So often the first step of getting your bearings within one of these locations is knowing what's around you, or the files or directories that are in your current working directory. As you can see, I'm in the example directory, and I'm about to execute the command ls, which just lists the files and directories in your current working directory. So if I press enter with typing in ls, as you can see, it spits some output, and these are all either files or directories. The stuff that's in blue bold are the directories, and the stuff that's just normal text are files. Now, pretty much this is one of the most key commands. It shows you everything that's available to you in your current directory, so stuff like directories or files. It will also show you symlinks, executables, and stuff like that. So there's also another very essential command called cd, pretty much shorthand for change directory. And so cd requires an argument, which is pretty much a optional thing you pipe into it. So for instance, cd requires an argument being a directory. So cd directory slash, and as you can see, now we're within that directory right here. So now our shell actually sits here instead of here. So of course we can ls and see all of the files that are here, and there's a file.txt. Of course, if you want to go back a directory, you can do cd and then dot dot. Dot dot pretty much is just a link or alias to the parent directory, in this case being example. So if I execute that, as you can see, we are now back in the example directory with all of those files as before. So as you're navigating all of this stuff, you can also tab complete. So as you saw out there, if I do type in di and then press tab, it will automatically complete it to whatever is there. Of course, if there are multiple options, like say I cd into p, and that completes with pandoc.html, and patch, as you can see, pressing tab shows you what is available. So say I want to cd into patch, then we can do that as well. So anyway, now there's a lot of stuff on our screen, and I'd like to maybe clear a bit of the screen so that there isn't all this chaos going on. Well, that's exactly what you can do. The clear command pretty much just wipes your screen of all of the output and command prompts so that you just get a clean screen. So ls, cd, and clear. Those are all the most important commands that you will ever use in a system, because you will always be navigating file systems and you will always be getting your bearings in those file systems. So I can cd back into example, ls, list everything in there, and clear the screen. These are probably the three most core commands that you will be using regardless of how you use the terminal. So now that you know the basics of navigating, let's actually delve a bit more into some of the file management stuff. So of course we can list files, but what if I want to know what's inside one of these files? Well, there's this test file here that seems interesting, and I want to see, well, what's actually inside that? Well, one command we can use is cat. This is short for concatenate, and pretty much it just takes a file or directory and prints its contents to output. So if we do cat test, as you can see, it says this is a file, and it's really cool, and that is the content that is within test. Of course, you can use cat with multiple arguments, so we could say test and get.html. As we can see, if we scroll up, you can see all of that code, but you can also see that it got in that little bit of text from test as well. So cat allows you to print out the context of a file or multiple files if you include them as another argument. Now, of course, you can also do the file command, which allows you to kind of inspect what a file is and what it actually, say, the file type, or maybe some interesting metadata about it. So we could do file on outro0.mp4, and as you can see, it's ISO media with MP4 based media. And we can do a file pandoc.html, and as you can see, it's a HTML document and with UTF-8 text with very long lines. So this is kind of I personally don't use this that much, but it's really good if you find something and you don't know exactly what it is, or say a file doesn't have an extension and you want to know exactly what does it do. Well, you can use the file command and learn about it. Of course, you can create files, and that is simply done with the touch command. So you type touch, and then the arg is the file you want to create. So let's call this file.txt. And as we can see, no output means that pretty much everything went fine. As you can see, now we have file.txt. Of course, if we cat that file, there is nothing in it because we just created it. So you can edit this file with a variety of text editors. There is Nano or there is Vim, and because I have Vim installed, I can just edit a file with Vim. So we could say this is a file. Exit and save. Now we can cat that file. As you can see, it now has content. Of course, it's great to create files, but if you want to have multiple copies of a file, that can be a bit tedious to create a file, then edit it, or say it's something big or you can't really edit it, like MP4 video. So what we can do is use the cp command, which is shorthand for copy. So its first argument is a file you want to copy, and then the next argument is the file you actually want to copy it to. This can either be an existing file or a new file. So let's call this new file.txt. Txt, if I could actually type. So now, if we list our files again, we have file and new file. And if we were to cat out that new file, as you can see, it is the same exact thing as that file.txt. So that's copying, but what if you want to, say, move or rename a file? Well, mv, short for move, does exactly that. So say we want to rename that new file.txt to something like, I don't know, ampro.txt. Now if we ls again, as you can see, it is now ampro.txt, and if we cat that out, as you can see, it has the same content. And of course, we can also remove a file with the rm command. So we can remove ampro.txt, and now that file is simply gone. Of course, directories also have their various commands, but with a few changes. If you want to create a dir, you can't just do touch and then say, I don't know, folder, for all you wintards out there. As you can see, if we ls folder, well, folder is just a file and not a directory. So if we want to make a directory, we do mkdir, or make directory. I'll call that folder. As you can see, now folder is an actual directory, and we can cd into folder. So you can remove folders in one of two ways. You can either do the rmdir command, so you can see rmdir folder, and we ls, and there is nothing there. If we make the directory again, and you can scroll through history with your up and down arrow keys. So if we create that folder again, we can also do rm-d and the name of that directory, folder. Now, this bumps into another important part of the command line, and these are options. Some people call them flags, but they're properly known as options. And that's exactly what this is. That is an option. So for the rm command, you can pass in the D option to delete an empty directory. Now, a lot of commands have a lot of different options. For instance, ls has a -a option or flag that allows you to view hidden files. So as you can see, we have a .hidden file and a .secret directory. And so we could ls .secret and see that there are 3 files in it. Now, it's a Unix file system convention to prepend a dot on something you want hidden, and that's just a funny and neat quirk. that originated from a bug in ls. But flags allow you to have specific actions from various commands. So if you want to learn exactly what flag can be used in a command, you can pass the --help option. Most tools, if they are developed well, will have something like this. And if we were to print enter, suddenly a bunch of text is spit out. As you can see, it shows us the usage, ls option file, and as you can see, there are a bunch of options. The one we just passed in here, the -a option, allows us to not ignore files starting with a dot or directories. But of course, there are a bunch of different options, lots of different ones. So for instance, ls-l allows us to use a long listing format. So if we do ls-l, as you can see, now we get stuff like file permissions, the user and group that it belongs to, the date that was last modified, and total. So options are a way to give a command more context or to do more with it. So the help menu can be great and can do a lot for you, especially with small commands like rm, cp, touch. But sometimes there are bigger commands or commands that have more complex usage, something like ffmpeg, which is a tool that is pretty much a video codec compiling, encoding program. So, of course, there's a lot of stuff. If we do ffmpeg, ffmpeg-help, as you can see, there is a lot of stuff. And this isn't even covering everything. So, one way developers of command line tools will often package their documentation for their programs in are what is known as man pages. So the man command allows you to view a man page of a certain command. So for in this case, we could do man to learn more about man. And as you can see, it spits us into an interface that allows us to navigate with scroll, up, down, arrow keys, or Vim keys if you use that. And pretty much shows us the name of the command, a synopsis of what options you can pass in, and then a description. This is super useful for commands that are often a lot bigger or need a bit more documentation. So as you can see, it documents main modes of operation, some flags, descriptions of what those flags do, and pretty much if you don't know how to do something, a man page will 99% of the time answer it for you. So we could also do man ls. As you can see, it does the same thing as the help menu. So shows us all of the flags we can pass in, what exactly those flags do, exit status, author, and a bunch of other stuff. So that is how you find documentation for a command you already know. But what if you don't know the command you are looking for? Well, you can do apropos or propos or apropo, I think. Not sure on the pronunciation, but apropo is pretty much a search tool for finding commands. So say I want to do apropos remove, look for anything that has remove. As you can see, it spits out a crap load of text, but this is all actually man pages for various things. So as you can see, this is the cut command. As you can see, it has our keyword remove. Cut is remove sections from each line of files. So if you want to kind of search for something, as you can, RM's right here, remove files or directories. So pretty much apropo is a command that allows you to search for something through man pages. Now, of course, ls is one of our commands, and in the shell, they are actually executable binaries on our system. So we can use the which command to find the actual path to that binary. So ls goes to sbin/ls, and we could even do which man. As you can see, that's also a binary there. So the command line, the elegant thing about it is that it's pretty much just you executing a bunch of binary files in a very nice interface. So anyway, these are how to find documentation for commands, and a lot of people, especially in the Linux community, if you have a question about this, they'll say RTFM or read the friggin' manual. Pretty much any basic question that you will have will 99.9% of the time be answered by the manual. So if you don't know how to do something in, say, mkdir, well, we can find the man page and it will show you everything about it. Or if you have a more complex command or utility, say like pandoc, you can do man pandoc, and it has a lot of documentation that will usually answer your questions. As you can see, a lot of stuff, but it's all organized in a way that makes sense. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics of the man command because there's a lot more that it can do that I probably won't cover in this video because it goes out of the scope. Anyway, now that we actually know some stuff, we can do man-k and it -k dot, and it will list out all of the manual entries. There are a lot of man entries. So if you're looking for something, you need to find something, but you don't know where, you can start looking with man-k, which will print out all the manual pages. Of course, one last thing on the shell that you can do is also the history command. Pretty much will show you all of your recent history. If you have multiple terminal sessions, this can be a bit weird with that, but as you can see, it prints out some of our commands that we've done. So our copy commands, cat, ls, our man. So pretty much if you can't remember a command you did previously and you don't want to mash arrow key to find it, well, you can just type in history and it will print out all of the history that you've had so far. Of course, if you're running, say, a big long command and you want it to stop, well, you can press Control-C and it will stop whatever is running. It will kill it. You can also do Control-L to redraw the screen, so it's similar to the clear command. And then one final command to end this video off is the exit command. Pretty much, it will bump you out of a terminal session. It will completely end it. So if we type exit here, now I've closed the terminal, I've closed my sales session, and that is how you leave a session. Now, you won't be using the exit command very much, but it's just good to know that it exists. Now, as I end this video, I have a few notes and a few things for you to think about. With the shell, it is such a big tool, such a big and useful tool, and you will never know everything. You're always going to be learning something new. And that's the idea with something. With something as extensible as the shell, you will learn more and more about it, and you'll learn more and more about how to utilize it in different situations. And then second, whenever you're in doubt, check the man pages, then check the internet. It'll save you a lot of pain if you just take a quick peek at the man pages. Developers slave away at writing documentation for their commands, so give them a pat on the back for their hard work and check out a man page before you go and search it up. Anyway, that is all for this video, and I will see you all in the next one.